Buried under decades of dust and bureaucratic negligence, sheriffs are at the bottom of the Arizona Territory archives. Reported on October 15, 1876. I've never seen the sunlight. This document describes the detection of human remains at the root of the Henry Ranch, 12 miles from the northeast. Starting with what will become Phoenix later. What do you do in this particularly unsettling case? It's merely murderous cruel, but what the deputies were investigating in his personal notes. The family ate. To him. They didn't know, but they ate it. Almost 150 years of descendants. Those who knew the truth maintained this buried story, fearing that shame, and fearing it had come to their origins. Before us. Continue with the story of Martha Henry and the most shocking family dinner in Arizona's territory history. Do something for me. Press this subscription button and let me know in comments about the state or town you are listening to. Since then. Because what you hear makes you question everything you think, in order to know about the limitations of justice. In the fall of 1876, he brought larger cows to the larger ones, more than fresh winds. Arizona Territory. Henry Ranch sat infinitely as brown scars. Desert landscape. That weeded building was grouped around the main house and saw the best days. Samuel Henry. He claimed this land during the territorial impulse of 1863, when the promise of the cow was an ambitious cause. Men to the west with dreams are more than their wallets. In 1876, these dreams were twisted. Something bitter and despicable. Almost 20 men at the summit worked at the ranch, making him one of the biggest. Operation in the Valley. Jacob and William of the Samuel brothers followed him in 1865 in the west. Attract his women and children to train what Samuel proudly calls proper family business. Henry's name. Rural weight of a dispersed colony of commercial posts heading towards the territory along the Salt River. Tucson's capital. Martha arrived like Samuel's wife in the spring of 1869. A pale, calm and gentle woman from Missouri, her family died after a flash of shawls. I was 22 and she owned it. The well-photoed delicate beauty soon remains under the hard desert sun. That's how the marriage was. Samuel, arranged by the correspondence, needs a wife to manage his house. Martha must escape charity. Distant parents who don't hide their burdens. First year. I made a promise. It turns out that Malta can do housework and can read and write. Better than most border women, fell with dignity that impressed the adjacent ranch. Wife. His elder, 10-year-old Samuel, was cautious enough during the marriage parade. Period. The problem began when the kids couldn't come. 1872. The tweet has begun. In the territory where large families mean survival and prosperity, children are obligation. Henry's men began to think that Malta was a failure to invest, not as a family. Samuel's attitude leaves her husband, disappointed by task's delinquency. His brothers began to see him as unpaid aid by photographing replicas of Samuel's call. Malta every day. The routines include cooking, cleaning, modification, and avoid increasingly clear language and more difficult views of the Henry family. She started breakfast before dawn. Fire, spend your days, clean, wash, wash sometimes, wash and cook when seasonal. The workers were in the residence. Ranch, daughter-in-law Samuel, Rebecca, Catherine, first. He offered friendship, but gradually drove it out as Samuel's manipulation with Martha became more clear. The territory of Arizona in 1876, despite its territory, was still unlawful. State efforts. The nearest sheriff lived in Tucson, 60 miles through the dangerous desert. Most of the conflict was resolved at the local level, along with men with strong opinions about weapons and good and evil. Women had little rights. And there are fewer options. Divorce is almost impossible, and there is only one woman. Territories had to face a range of outlooks, from terrible to human. The cow company fought. A harsh winter. Due to the cruel drought of the subsequent summer, it destroyed herds throughout the territory. Tell Ken Samuel, especially never. It was stable and increased by explosive material when financial pressure was set up. He drank more aggressively and played with cows quarterly. While Henry's surgery was nearly impossible, he took home the story of the owners adjacent to the ranch that attacked them. Even if it's broken. Malta has absorbed all responsibility, from failed pregnancy to failed yields. If the bread was burning. Because it was useless. If the price of the cow drops, it's because God punished Samuel for his sterilization. Marriage. The brothers repeated these feelings, creating an atmosphere of constant criticism and accidental cruelty. It was in Malta like water on a stone. Cherito's isolation exacerbates each problem. The email has arrived. Sporadic visitors were rare, with the closest neighbor living 8 miles. Martha had no agents, allies, or escape roads. It was in the bubble. Male hostility. His world is narrowed into an endless cycle of building ranches and unappreciated work. How? In 1876, Samuel's violence increased beyond the limits of simple verbal violence. What? He started out as a raw treatment during discussion and made progress for free kicks. Malta learned to read signs. His shoulder set. When he drank, he saw it in a special way when the ranch took into consideration. He balances the dangerous silence that preceded his worst rage. Night. On October 3, 1876, like many others, it began in the fall with Samuel. Returning from the living room of my neighbor Vikichenberg, I wore the barely familiar combination of alcohol steam. Rage content. The auction of a quarter of the cow was a disaster. There was a price. It was almost 40% down compared to the previous year, so Samuel saw the owner next to the ranch celebrate the deal between her. Attracted action only offers at low balls from opportunistic buyers. Malta was C. The kitchen cleans up the final dish of a lamp-light dinner when they hear the heavy stairs on the porch. She doesn't have. He sees how Samuel has come in and concentrates on the tin plate in his hands. Experience teaching him this direct visual contact while he was drinking. Showdown. No use, muttering Samuel, his thick whiskey voice. And disappointment. It's absolutely useless, Marta kept washing, she. Movement is wise and quiet. Sometimes, he could ignore his initial provocation and pass through the atmosphere. Sometimes you. Listen to what I'm talking to you. Samuel's voice rose up and she had a dangerous advantage. I've learned to fear. Samuel, I heard that, Marta answered quietly, not yet. Turning. Look at me when I talk to you. Martha sat on the plate and turned slowly. Samuel has been detained. He swings slightly at the doorway, his face blushing with drinks and anger. Behind him she could see Jacob. William moved to the pouch with the bottle and the woman fired the children to sleep a few hours ago. 12 years old, Samuel said, his words came out in linked groans. I'm 12 years old. He kept you in the position of feeding you. 12 years old, no child without luck. But a useless woman is eating my food and wearing my clothes. Martha said nothing. She discovers that the answer is merely fueled by her rage. Henderson's wife, she has 6 children. 6. Not the youngest. Even for 2 years. Mrs. Patterson. She carries the 8th. Samuel took a step. Nearby, Malta smelled whiskey in his breath mixed with the cigarette. His clothes. But my wife, doesn't just give me an empty room. Hope. Samuel, please, Chichota Martha. Men can hear. Listen. Leave. They all hear about Samuel Henry's useless wife. The clutch was thick iron. And Martha Harita as her fingers dig into his flesh. Through the open door, she could see how Jacob and William saw. Watching familiar sights, men have random interest. "You'll cost me money," Samuel's voice. I whipped my mouth. "Children do not mean extra hands. I don't have a son to help. Farm. There are no girls who will marry the alliance. You're even worse than useless. You cherish it. It's useless." Martha tried. "I'll remove it, but Samuel's clutch is just hanging out." "Samuel, you injured me. Do you hurt yourself?" Samuel laughed, the sound was like a broken glass. "Bean, you don't know. It causes pain, but maybe that's when you learn." The first blow took Malta. Contrary to such strength, she stumbled backwards, her thighs hitting the edge of the kitchen table. Hard. The horns of pain sent the horns to her side, but before she could recover, Samuel was with her again. It's 12. Disappointing for years, he groaned, his fist connected to his shore. To make me look stupid in front of each ranch in the territory. Marta tried to protect herself with her weapons, but Samuel was a large person, became strong during the years of the ranch. Each blow. He landed with destructive power, passing through the air of his lungs and sent the waves of agony through his body. Samuel. Stop. She tried, blood in her mouth. Samuel grabbed her hair and pulled her head to look at her face. His eyes had a wild glow, but it was fearful. "It's more than physical pain. I had to stop 12 years ago. I have to leave you in Missouri. The rest of your useless family." He let out his hair out of his mouth into a withdrawal, suddenly power. After splitting the lips and sending them to the ground. Marta was lying there, panting, her vision blurred with tears. Pain, weakly makes the pouch laugh. Look at it, boy. Samuel. He called for his brother. Look at Grand Malta Henry. William watches in entertainment. Jacob raised the bottle in an arrangement. Perhaps. Now she recognizes her place, Sam. When someone set it up, William added, his laughter echoed through the abandoned night. Samuel looked at Martha with disgust. Wake up, he. Order. Martha tried to get up, her movements slowly and painfully. That rib bone. She screamed with every breath, and she felt blood flow from her split lips. But she managed to kneel. Then he shouts with his feet. Better, Samuel said with satisfaction. Now you may remember what's going on when you're disappointed. Something about her has changed. The fear was still there, but like the coal below, something burned, buried in ashes. More. Something raised from 12 years of humiliation and abuse. Eat all the cruel words. Random soul, Samuel turned away and was clearly satisfied in the evening. Work. He went to the door, probably planning to join his brother and discover more stories. His unnecessary wife. He has never seen Martha's hands closed around the wire handle that was in the kitchen. Painting. The blade is made of carbon steel, 8, and remains sharp on hot Sundays. Preparing for the celebration. There were countless dishes for the Henry family and Martha's constant companion. Long-standing home service. Now it was in the opposite direction of his fight, and it's a tool, but as an answer. Samuel, Martha called gently. He turned. Maybe wait or ask for another excuse. Instead, he had met a woman. Recognized. Martha's swollen face was established in awful, gentle expression. And the knife in his hand took the lamp as promised. Malta, what is the devil? Samuel began, but the words. He eventually died in his throat when he realized what he had seen. The moment spread between them. Respiratory organs. Samuel's alcohol reflex fought to deal with transformation in front of him. It wasn't a stable woman he has beaten over the past 12 years. It was something else. That I did that. Drunk confidence evaporates like morning dew under the desert sun. Put it. Samuel said, his voice lost the violence he had before. Martha is now putting this knife down. But Martha didn't move. She stood there, holding a blade, a swollen face, a mask of rage that had accumulated over the years, and finally discovered her purpose. The blood on her split lips flowed into her apron, creating small dark spots that appeared to be hung. Sparkling lantern. 12 years old, Marta says gently, her voice is stable. His injury. Fists 2 years and 12 years of laughter from my brother. 12. I was told it was useless. Now, Marta, you're upset. I understand that. But you interrupted Malta and made a bit more progress. The knife was still there. It's stable to capture. You understand that you like to wake up every morning, know the people who suggest. To look at yourself as an object that blames you for your failures. Samuel's eyes were rushing. The door was still heard when his brother was heard. But something in Martha's expression opposed him. Ask for help. It was similar back then, literally balanced at the edge of the knife, allowing for sudden movements. I'm going to violence. I am a good wife, I continued Martha, and his voice grew stronger. I'm ready. Your food cleans your home, repairs your clothes, and never complains about the life you gave me. And what? Did you have it in return? Martha, please. Samuel, what did you get? Martha. The voice fostered, and it was Samuel who was scared for the first time in 12 years. The pouch was silent, as if Jacob and William had felt something changing into the atmosphere. The nights of the desert pushed the coral reef building's vast sky, indifferent to human suffering. Samuel. He licked his lips nervously. Listen, maybe I was a bit heavy tonight, but how do you know about business? It was. Pressure, Malta has been repeated. Your pressure. Your problems, your disappointment, and in some way, they're all my fault, right? She took another step. Samuel is instinctively persisting. The lower prices for cows will fall. It is from God. I will punish you for your barren wife. Culture fails. That's because I failed. Your brother needs someone. Please look forward to it. Well, Martha is an easy goal. I never said that. You didn't have it. Samuel says this. You showed me every day with your own words and your daily cruelty. You showed me. I was worth it exactly what you think. The knife again found the light when Martha fixed the socket. That's what Samuel's eyes were like. His mind, fixed on the blade, tries to calculate distance and opportunity. But the year of alcohol consumption slowed her reflection, and while Malta was closer, it was practical. What do you want? Samuel. He asked, his voice was barely higher than whispering. At that time, Malta smiled, and it was the most. Samuel's terrible expression when Reba saw it. It was the man's smile that finally made me feel clarity many years later. After confusion, purpose, years of purposeless suffering. I want to show you what really useless things look like, she. I said. After that, it took less than 5 seconds to know what happened, but these seconds continue. Arizona territory for generations. Samuel, finally, the truth is realized. The danger he was rushing to take the knife. However, 12 years of work on the ranch. Marta motivated that she was stronger than she thought, and that the 12 years of violence could not be Samuel. Handle. The blade discovered the mark with surgical accuracy, sliding through Samuel's shore and through his mind. I can barely hear it. His eyes were very well known in shock, and confusion, and nothing. All. He fell on his lap, then forward to his face, his body gently slapping in the kitchen. Malta stood on him for a long time, a bloody knife still in her hand, listening to the silence she had held. Suddenly, he fell to the ranch. The Pouch's voice stopped completely. Jacob and William may have heard something, and they may simply be lost in their own drunken conversations. Either way, Martha knew she only had it a few minutes before someone came. She kneeled next to Samuel's body, next to her heart. It's clearly running what she hasn't felt in years. The fear has disappeared. Constant. The anxiety that was his companion was eliminated, and the cold and calculations were replaced by "I'm absolutely focused." Samuel was dead and killed him. In Arizona. On the territory of 1876, it meant that if it was caught, it would be hanged. But how did Martha see her? In her husband's lively form, she realized that she felt no repent and was only deep. A sense of completion. That was always the way it ended. She could now see him completely clearly. Question. What was going on after that? Malta quickly moved quietly and at home her skills. It's good to provide it with this strange task. She used the old one to drag Samuel's body to the cellar's root input. A padded blanket that makes all the sounds own. The basement was hard and dark and ideal. Preserving meat during the hot summers in Arizona. It is also used to maintain evidence. When she worked. Martha's mind was already 3 steps, planning and calculation using the same systematic approach. Bring it to food. Samuel's brother expects to see him in the morning. They will ask if it is. What if it's missing, but it's not missing? What if he was just somewhere else? Plan. He began training in Martha's mind. She saw. Samuel's body is a large block of danger that has prepared countless dishes for the Henry family. 4. In March, for the first time in 12 years, Henry smiled at sincere happiness. A. The brothers have probably learned that they are truly useless. They all studied. Dawn. On October 4, 1876, I slowly came to the territory of Arizona. Paint the desert landscape in gold and orange shades. This will be beautiful in a variety of situations. Martha didn't sleep. She handed her a dark clock until the sunrise and worked together. The focused strength of a woman who realized that her life depends on the details. Samuel's body lay in the basement of the roots, carefully wrapped around it. Martha. He carefully cleaned the kitchen, wiped all the blood marks down and made sure there was nothing left. It provided violence. For random observers, it may seem like Samuel just slept. His consumption lessens with his brother. But Martha's work wasn't over. The most difficult part awaits us. Preparation began under the first light, starting with a large rack, and generally used stew. Hand lunch. The pot is made of black iron and seasoned after many years of use. It is enough to serve 30 men. Today it is used entirely as a different purpose. Martha sets a fire to the kitchen slab and fuels it with oak logs, burning hot and clean. It's the temperature you need to be perfect and get hot enough on its edge, but not too hot to attract unnecessary attention. Others will be held next to the kitchen. She worked in the practice of human efficiency that controlled the ranch kitchen. Over 10 years. From the basement of the route, she took what she needed. This is in the controlled part. His internal skills were refined for the preparation of the game. This Samuel and his brother returned from a hunting trip and served him well. She is a deer, a moose, and wild boar. The techniques were the same, with only the bets being infinitely high. Martha worked systematically, and his mind was completely focused on the task. It separates useful parts of waste and puts aside the elimination of what can be prepared and what can be done. No. The bones and Christ came into the bag. It will later be buried in the desert. It contains the right meat. Preparation she set up in the main work center in the kitchen. In the morning, Jacob and William definitely moved to their beds and hangovers, drugged and drank the night before. Martha. We were able to hear the movements of their rooms. The familiar sounds of Henry's men begin on another day. Soon they will. When it comes to breakfast, they ask questions about Samuel. Malta was ready for them. She prepared history. Note how she prepared everything else. Samuel stood up early, she told them, complained about her anxiety. After a disappointing auction, he announced his intention to go to Vikichenburg to talk to others. Ranches about resource combinations for travel to the California market. Such a trip takes several days. It is possible for longer if he decides to continue Francis' dignity to investigate Pacific transport options. That's what the story was. It's reliable because it contained elements of truth. Samuel was really disappointed with the price of the local cow. He then mentioned the possibility of looking for alternative markets. The Henry brothers wouldn't doubt anything. Samuel goes to the business company without any special notice. It was a truly impulsive decision. Their brothers were known. Where is Sam? The eyes are bloody blows. Martha stood in the stove and stirred up the contents of the large pot. The smell of cooking meat. Filled with rich and salty dishes. She added onions, herbs and spices. Create a stew that disguises all the unknown aromas. He left before dawn. Martha replied without looking back. He headed to Vic Center. Something about the price of a cow. Guardian. He appeared at the door and seemed equally bad for wear. Needless to say, he left. Something. You know how he trades when he is trading, Martha said. It is arranged by stewed meat in a bowl. He said he could leave for more than a week. Something about California buyers. Brothers. They exchanged their appearances, but seemed to accept the explanation. Samuel Mercurial. Nature was legendary, and its commercial relationships often made unexpected turns. They settled on the kitchen table and thanked them for the hot dishes and strong coffee to fight the trees. This. Now, after tasting the stew, Jacob said. What is this meat? His voice remained stable. Wild Blanc, she said. Samuel made him. This hunting trip last month. I saved it in the route cellar. As delicious as a wild boar, I realized how he didn't look. Take another spoon. This time I prepared it in another direction and answered Martha. I used some new spices I received from this traveler. I thought it would improve the taste. The brothers were visible. I am pleased with this explanation and the pursuit of food. Malta cleaned and fought to keep it up. Her hands are stable when she sees Samuel's brothers consuming morning food with obvious pleasure. Sam will say when he will do so. He went back and asked Jacob. He wasn't quite sure. It depends on what he finds in California. It may take 2 weeks, but it may take longer. This news didn't seem to worry about the brothers. Especially. Samuel often left them to manage the ranch operations, but he was engaged in a variety of commercial regimes. They were. I can get used to his absence and deal with his daily work without supervision. Malta served them second. We guarantee you have eaten the decorations before cleaning the table. She removes the remaining stew and I keep it for dinner. But in fact, she buried it deep in the desert. All evidence work. The next day, March saved science fiction. Samuel's lack is a detailed note to detail. She intercepted the email and said Samuel had instructed her. You will face communication until it becomes. She refused the question from the ranch next door and explained it. Samuel learned new commercial opportunities in California. The fraud was alienated by Samuel. Its unique reputation for impulsive commercial companies and widening gaps. Arizona's territory in 1876 was a place where men often disappeared for weeks and pursued opportunities. Or avoid debt. Samuel's absence is noteworthy, but not unprecedented. However, Martha knew that a deception could not continue constantly. Lastly, people start asking tougher questions. In the end, someone will want to check out Samuel's location. We hope he will return from his mysterious California business. This time, Martha used it to plan her escape. He began collecting supplies every day for long trips to avoid doubt. She studied Samuel. Cards from the territory identify the routes that take it to the populated regions and Mexicans' borders. The irony was not lost for her. For 12 years she was locked up. Henry Ranch, isolated and helpless. Now that we have done the final act of uprising, finally, leave it for free. The question was whether she could go far enough before anyone discovered it. Truth. Meanwhile, Jacob and William continue to control the ranch operations, according to what is visible, but don't bother them. The absence of their brothers. They appeared to free themselves from the unstable nature of Samuel and constant, if necessary, fatal. The ranch has now smoothed out without unpredictable intervention. Martha saw them do their job. These people. He tormented it for many years and felt cold satisfaction. They did not know that the brothers lived in the house where they had died firmly. They did not think they had absorbed his flesh with obvious pleasure. They didn't know that such calculations were possible for a gentle and useless woman who had abused for over a decade. Revenge. But Martha knew her time was going to expire. She had to come true. The final stage of his plan before doubt began to grow. And this step. You'll need another family food to guarantee the truth about what happened. The Henry brothers for the rest of her life. Preparations began 2 weeks after Samuel Malta disappeared. For what she knew, she would be her final dinner at Henry's ranch. The date is October 17, 1876, and the autumn air carried the first one. Tips for the harsh winter. Seasonal ranch hands were paid, sent to spring, and left. The main families, Jacob, William, their women Rebecca and Catherine, and their 6 children united. Malta planned tonight while waiting for the right time. Everyone will be together and relaxed. Earlier that day, she announced she wanted to prepare for a special Sunday. A dinner to celebrate the success of the fall review. The family gathered for the main lunch. Rooms, an unusual phenomenon that Samuel generally reserves for holidays and special occasions. That's enough vacation, Martha, Rebecca said. We took into consideration the complex distributions that Martha prepared. Painting. Fried meat, fresh bread, vegetables from vegetable patches, and even jemmy under the weight of an apple pie. She was made from fruits she kept at the beginning of the season. I wanted to do something special. Martha replied that her voice had no single nervous tension she felt inside. When Samuel is in business, I thought we should spend some time evaluating what we have. Catherine nodded. Approved. Sam's voice was too calm as there was no voice inside the house. Samuel, the suspect, will soon return. The commercial company rarely holds it for more than a month. But William. Insert. You need to prepare. Maybe send someone to Vikichenberg and ask around you and see if someone is hearing from him. Martha nodded as if it were a reasonable offer, but inside, she felt the initial excitement of panic. Serious investigation into Samuel's site immediately shows that he has never arrived at Vicksburg. One followed in California. She didn't have enough time. That's wise, she. I said. Maybe after cleaning dinner we could have more discussion. But Malta didn't take part in such discussions. After dinner, she vanishes in the desert evening and leaves behind A letter explaining everything the Henry family needs to find their final food together. She is all ready. He wrote a letter, sealed it in an envelope and placed it where it would be found after she left. Words. Carefully chosen, designed to cause as much psychological damage as possible, and designed to provide enough truth to satisfy. Official survey. Malta. As the family continued their food, laughed, and spoke to the table. I justify checking my kitchen regularly. While these briefs passed, she gathered supplies. She hides behind the escape. Water, dried food, warm clothes, etc. The little money she was able to save over the years. His horse was overwhelmed and expected in the grove of mesquite tree. Half of the ranch. She moved her supplies there the same day and made sure it was more of a piece. Everything was ready for a quick departure. Malta, you're beyond, Catherine asked. Dining room. This food is absolutely fantastic. The kids are already asking if you can start again. I am. I'm glad you liked it, Marta recalls fixing her travel bag and checking out the content at the end. Everything was there. Food, water, clothes, silver and a small pistol she put in the cabinet on Samuel's arms. Even if she wanted it not to need to use it, the weapon was loaded and ready. Malta returned to the dining room. Finally, it helped me to take a compliment to the food and clean the table. She's moving normally and doesn't give any indication that she'll be the last time she's met these people one day. Place. Well, Jacob was happy with his stomach. Of course. It's worth celebrating. What do you think is that all? Should I make this monthly tradition? The family has won contracts and already has plans for future meetings. Marta smiled and nodded, playing her role perfectly, her mind was concentrated. On future trips. Henry's fear escalated when we thought we had seen all of this. If this story gives you chills, share this video with a friend who loves dark puzzles. Press the button. Please support our content and don't forget to subscribe to never miss such stories. Please open it /. In this story, the following happens in Limit Justice, and it gets really bad. How? The family settles into the living room for a conversation after Dee, and Martha quietly slips into his room. She's changed. Dark and practical clothes suitable for long-term travel clothes. A desert trip. She put her hair firmly on and secured some valuable things. The property of the hidden pockets she sewed into her coat. The envelope containing that recognition is on. Kitchen tables are supported for coffee boxes. In a coffee box, someone will certainly find it in the morning. Malta was. I wrote this in his wise scenario and explained everything since Samuel's year of abuse was abused for accurate content. Dinner tonight. Surviving families will certainly know what they absorbed and why. Martha took the latter. Look around the kitchen where she spent so much of her life. Foods cooked in this furnace for 12 years. 12 years old. The dish is washed in this sink. The dream of 12 years old dies slowly in this room. Now. This will be the center of a nightmare that has always been going on for Henry's family. She could hear the voice. A relaxing and happy living room after a wonderful dinner. They had no idea that their world will change forever. They didn't know of women. They were fired for uselessness and gave them the most memorable food of their lives. Nominated Martha. I quickly went over the groves where his horse was waiting for me on the kitchen door and the abandoned night. Behind her, Henry. The ranch glowed with hot lamps, a peaceful and prosperous atmosphere in the darkness. It will soon be a place. Fear and shame. The name whispered in awful Arizona colors. Region. The script forgives herself for a while as she climbed onto the horse and turned to the Mexican border. Satisfaction. Finally, she showed the Henry family. She finally made them understand the true cost of their cruelty. The desert was crazy in front of it, expanded, unforgiving, but What has been rejected for 12 years, providing freedom. Martha went strong. After drawing as many distances as possible during the night, the farm is until dawn. His loss of discovery. The desert landscape was constantly growing in all directions and soaked in money. The moonlight casts a strange shadow between Sagaro and Rocky's cactus. Going out. Her horse was strong and I was sure she had been specifically chosen a few months ago. Until October 18, it was about 20 m south of the ranch, according to the old Indian road. It's difficult to follow for the sake of the pursuer. Marta carefully studied these routes, knowing her survival. He relied on realizing the Mexican border before everyone could discover what she had done. I returned to the farm and the day began. Usually it's sufficient. Jacob and William expect to find breakfast with the sun as their habits and predictably. Kitchen. Instead, they found an empty oven and there were no signs of Martha. March, Jacob called, his voice resonating through the quiet house. Where do you have breakfast? Answer. William checks Martha's room and discovers that his bed is not playing. Her traveler was absent in her wardrobe along with some personal ones. She's gone, William said. He returned to cooking with a dark expression. He took his own and set out somewhere in the evening. Jacob scratched his head. It's more confusing than it relates. That's strange. Where will she go? She received. There is no family, there is no money you can talk to. Maybe she's tired of waiting for Sam at last. William proposed. Women sometimes get a concept, especially. They were alone for too long. It was Rebecca who found the letter. She comes to the kitchen looking for coffee. I noticed a tin-supported envelope. His name was written before Martha's exact writing. In the Henry family's words. Jacob William, she called her. Fold a strange tension notebook. You have to see it. The brothers gathered. His trembling fingers opened his limits around Rebecca. The letter was written in March for a few pages. Complete script. The more capable Jacob, the two brothers, took the pages and began reading aloud. My beloved family, He read it and then stopped suddenly, and his face turned pale. What is it? William. Request. What is he saying? On the whisper. When you read this, I'm far from the ranch, I'll never come back. I feel like I owe you. My sudden departure and description of a particular event that occurred. The past few weeks. Catherine joins them now, stretched out by tension in the room. Children. He stayed in the cabin and didn't know that their world was not about to turn it around. Samuel didn't go. California Jacob continued reading her voice. Samuel never leaves. Anywhere. On the night of October 3rd, after years of cruelty and degradation in his hands and yours, He killed my husband in the same kitchen. Rebecca Harita, her hand was flying to her mouth. William spotted the letter with Jacob's trembling fingers and scanned the words with a terrifying growth. He can become it. She can't keep it in her mind. William's voice retreated when he read the rest. The letter explains everything in detail. Browse finally pushed Malta out of durability. Depth elimination. Samuel's body, followed by methodological preparation. But that was the last paragraph. I will survive the family for the rest of my life. It's hot, you finally loved so well. At dinner at night, William reads the strangled voice and is ready from Samuel's body. You've absorbed yours. Brothers, your husband, your father. You told me I've been useless for 12 years. I wanted to show you what really meant to be useless. You treated me like an animal, so I treated Samuel as one. You can. Don't forget the taste for the rest of your life. Marta Henry. The psychological devastation of knowledge of what they did. Children have to say something. Probably not the perfect truth. My neighbor asked questions to someone who couldn't answer honestly. Once respected throughout the territory, the name Henry is associated with fear and shame. But there may be many people. All the shattering was the knowledge that Martha's revenge was perfect in her bloating. She just didn't kill Samuel. She inadvertently involved her family in the mischief of her body. She did that. They reached their own degradation. Full volume when the sun rises high in the Arizona sky. Manshaw Martha has been revealed. She didn't just kill her offensive husband. She destroyed the legacy from Henry with surgical accuracy. The family has never recovered since this time and never avoided learning that they were absorbed in their moments. Family celebration. Meanwhile, somewhere in the vast desert, Malta, Henry went completely free with work satisfaction. She showed them what is useless really means, and they acquire this knowledge with them in their graves. Formal survey by Samuel Henry disappeared 3 days later, when Jacob finally increased the courage to go to Vickensburg and contact the territory marshal. Assistant Marshal Harrison Clark was 50 years old, discharged from hospital, and saw enough violence restrictions to be surprised. Very few. However, even he was shocked to find Henry's ranch. Clark's official report submitted on October 23, 1876. In this case, we provide only surviving legal documents. The adjutant wrote in a wise, specialized language. Human body discovery at the ranch route cellar, systematic blur evidence and written awareness of a suspected crime. The fact that he was not included in his official report was his staff. Observation of visible surviving families suffering from serious psychological injuries outside. A simple murder detection is expected. They can eat, Clark writes privately. A letter to his wife. One of them. They lost on the regular. A few days since that happened. Women can barely speak, men jump into the shade. This is how they saw it. Something that broke their hearts. Martha Henry's loser was vast, but in the end it was useless. Follow the parts. Following a road that was nearly 100 miles south, we lost it in a rocky area near the Mexican border. The consensus among researchers was that Martha either died in the desert or managed to cross Mexico. Territorial law failed to reach it. Covered by local newspapers. Sensational history to varying degrees. Arizona Weekly Shocktar holds the title, Wife Lunch. My husband kills and runs to Mexico, but has reported some details. The nature of Maltese revenge. More indecency details are considered too surprising for publication. It is divided only into whispers of conversations in salons and general stores. Henry's family did not recover. Injury. Jacob sells the ranch for its value share 6 months later, moving the family and spending money. In Oregon. William followed their example to transport his wife and children to California. The brothers never publicly spoke about what happened, and 2 families changed their last names. Departing from Arizona year. The ranch itself was empty for several years before buying the cows. Texas Company. The new owner tore the original building and built a new but local building. Superstition ensures that the property never again exhibited the family. He remained in an equipped commercial operation. Seasonal workers who don't talk about the history of the earth. Martha Henry never saw him again in Arizona. Region. Various observations have been reported over the years. The woman responding to her description worked. Another Tuzen Taylor led a Tombstone boarding school, but one of them was not confirmed. Official. The conclusion was that she died in the desert while flying, but her body was not found. But there is bullying evidence suggesting that Martha may have survived her escape. 1889, 13 years later. The murder case, the package arrived at the Witzenberg post office, addressed to people of Arizona territories. It was inside. Photo like L of the average woman facing the fact that she appeared. Let's become a small house or shop. It was written behind my friend's hand. Words, / something is waiting, mh. / the photo was turned over. The territorial authorities, but at that time, the incident was considered. Surviving members of the Henry family have long disappeared anonymously. The image was submitted and eventually lost, and only a simple mention remains in the postal note. Martha Henry may have lived until the new century. The psychological consequences of Martha's revenge have escalated far outside the closest family. The word what happened spreads across the territory despite efforts to exclude it. Details create a warning story that influenced the way border families treat wives. It's a bit documented. An offensive husband may be facing a neighbor or local government with warning at the end. Like Samuel Henry. This incident had a long impact on territorial law. Applicability of law. New protocols have been created to investigate domestic violence in several jurisdictions. He began appointing women from his wife's unofficial supporters at his troubled wedding. These changes have also been generated. Later to help Martha, they represent the perception that the existing system is suffering devastated. Dr. Margaret Steinberg, a researcher at the University of Arizona who studied violence at borders in the 1960s, wrote much about the Henry issue. His 1967 book, Hidden Violence, Women and Western. The border, Malta's extreme reaction, claimed, was an inevitable outcome of a system that did not provide legal measures for women undergoing violence. Martha Henry was not evil. Dr. Steinberg wrote. Not a person. His revenge was terrible, but it was totally too. It is calculated to use the deepest fears and taboos of culture. This is cruel. Ranch property. We moved into their hands several times over the decades, and as Phoenix developed, it eventually became part of a wider development. With the surrounding desert. Today, Henry's ranch was once occupied by a shopping center. Its tragic history is unknown to the thousands of people passing by every day. But in the archives, Arizona's Historic Society is carefully kept in acid-free files. The original document in the case is accessible to researchers. Marshall Clark's sub-report, Little. One of the most has a window in one of the most surviving newspaper accounts, and even copies of letters about Martha's recognition. Anxious Crimes in Territorial History. The letter itself still catches a cold today. 140 years after he wrote it. Accurate writing in calm tone. It is clear that this is a horrifying behavior that explains his final words. In particular, it continues to resonate with everyone who read them. I spent 12 years by learning what it means to be useless in the eyes of those who claim they loved me. I wanted to teach them the same thing. A lesson to show what it is to discover that what they appreciated is not actually useful. They appreciated family ties, general food and men's pride. I did everything. Someone who is useless for dinner. Now they know what I felt every day for 12 years. Henry Business. It remains unique in the chronicle of American crime, not only because of its shocking nature but also because of Martha's methodological methods. Planned and completed his revenge. Unlike the crime of passion and despair, Martha's actions demonstrate a level of intentionality and psychological refinement. It has not been a precedent for a certain period of time. Most alarming is perhaps the ideal symmetry of Martha's revenge. She was thought to be less than people for 12 years. Therefore, she literally transformed her husband into meat. We told him she was of no use. Therefore, she established the most valuable bonds of the family, their general cuisine, and their family meetings. It is useless due to pollution. She was helpless. Therefore, she insisted on the ultimate power over life and death. The secret is, even in the hard boundary environment of 1876. When violence is common and justice is often unusual, certain actions were very calculated and cruel. He overcomes the usual understanding of good and evil. Martha Henry's story makes us uncomfortable. Questions about justice, revenge, cruelty and human ability to retaliate. What do you think? History? Do you think Martha's actions were justified by the abuse she suffered? Or his revenge surpassed his revenge? What should we not exchange with the provocation? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts about this surprising chapter in the history of Arizona's territorial lands. If you like this story and want more stories to explore the dark side of American history, subscribe was hit by the notification bell. And share historical puzzles with your loved ones. The border was a place that ordinary people pushed to an unusually extreme. And Martha Henry's story reminds me that sometimes she is the most dangerous person of all. The situation is nothing to lose. You will be redirected to the next video.